Yo, what's up, Exotic Car Hacks? PJ here. Well, technically my name's Pejman Gadimi, but I go by PJ because most of you can't pronounce my name worth shit. But nonetheless, I'm here to tell you about our sick Cyber Monday sale. No, actually, that's not what I'm really here for. I don't even know. You know, they don't write scripts for this shit, so I don't know what to actually say sometimes. But you know what I decided is for Cyber Monday, instead of actually selling you something and telling you how you should join Exotic Car Hacks because it's going to teach you how to buy, trade, and sell cars, blah, 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 and all that bullshit, so you can actually start learning to do what I do and drive cars that are really cool. Well, instead, I'm going to teach you something, so perhaps you really start understanding that the value we create is far above and beyond just the idea of you purchasing a product. It is the idea of understanding not just how cars work, car reviews, and all that bullshit, but the reality of how dealerships work, which is something that many of you don't seem to understand. So, that said, I'm going to teach you three critical things you've never actually may have heard of, that dealers will hate me for sharing, which will completely reveal their secrets. Now, I've decided to also film this video with my shitty Samsung phone because so many of you complain about my microphone. So it only made sense that I made it worse for you guys, so you can stop ear fucking me about the microphone and focus more on what I'm teaching you. So perhaps you can actually learn something, save some money, make some money, and actually drive exotic cars without having any costs associated with it. So let's get into the video and let me teach you three critical things dealerships do and how you can read right past them so that you can leverage a better position when buying a car at a fraction of cost. Many of you asked in my Lamborghini video, how do I do it? How do I buy exotic cars so cheap? Get the fuck out of here with the value being so cheap. We don't believe it. We don't buy it. I don't get it. I'm going to teach you about the 30, 60, 90 rule. I'm going to teach you about how to read listings and what's the last number of a listing and how that changes for one of the largest franchise dealers in the nation. And I'm going to teach you what the pre-pack deal means and what pre-packing is for a dealer and how they're fooling you when they're showing you invoices. So stay tuned and let's get right. Okay guys, so I promised you would learn three key things today from watching this video, and this is some of the stuff I teach you in Exotic Car Hacks, which is why I wanted you to kind of watch this video, because a lot of people don't seem to understand these concepts, because obviously they either are not in the car business, they don't understand the car business, have not been exposed to it or whatsoever. Now, I was never a car salesman like many of you may think, and I never owned a dealership. However, I've bought and sold so many cars through the years, and I actually own one of the largest concierge services in the US. And as a result of it, I've learned quite a bit about exotic cars and buying and selling quite a lot of them, not as a salesman, but for a lot of people through a side of or a division of our business that has a brokerage firm. And so between all the stuff I teach at Exotic Car Hacks and Watch Conspiracy, I thought I'd take you through these three critical things you need to learn today. So the first one is I want you to look at this ad on eBay here for a 2014 Aston Martin Vanquish V12 with 8,772 miles, and then it's now listed for 182,000. Now this car was previously listed for 199,000, and now it's been brought down in price to 182,000. That said, I wanted you to kind of understand a little bit more about the way this actual system called the 30, 60, 90 rule works for dealerships. You see, most dealerships, now I'm not talking about the tiny dealerships that are right in the corner of your house that have maybe 10 cars in inventory. We're talking about mainly larger dealerships with large inventory. When I say large, meaning expensive inventory spread across multiple cars, like 200-300K cars times 20. I consider that large inventory for a dealer. And then if not, we're talking about franchise dealers such as, Lamborghini dealerships with an enormous amount of used cars on the lot, right? So one of the things dealers have is they need to move cars. They need to move cars for several reasons. If they're new, it's called floor planning. So if they're a franchise dealership, they're given certain rates based on holding financing on the cars on the lot, and they need to move them within 90 days or the financing goes up on them. So they're eager to make deals because they don't want to pay money to hold a car, not to their lenders anyways. Now, the same thing can be applied to used cars, except that with used cars, dealers just want to move them because they're obviously dealing with depreciation in the market changing conditions. They're also potentially running into issues keeping cars very long because a lot of them, honestly, this is the trick. They don't actually check the shit they sell you. They tell you they got inspections, but they don't look at that shit. You get it and it's completely fucked up. 9 out of 10 dealers I've ever worked with don't even look at the cars they take on trade. They take them on trade, they put them straight on the showroom floor, and if there's an issue with them, they deal with it later once the new buyer's taken it. Some will do you right, many will do you wrong, but the bottom line is they just don't give a shit and they don't check. Even if they tell you they're doing their inspections, that's a flat out lie. I have never private purchase inspected a car in my life that was perfect from the get-go or was exactly with the damage on the engine or transmission that the dealer disclosed before going to actual getting through this inspection. So the 30, 60, 90 rule, what is it? It's really simple. We're going to look here on the Carfax. I'm going to load up the Carfax for, I believe, this car. I'm not sure. No, this is the Vantage. I'm sorry. So here's the Vanquish, the 2014 Aston Martin Vanquish, the same one we're just looking at. Here's the Carfax. What is the 30, 60, 90 rule? So on the Carfax, first off, you can actually tell when a car was taking in inventory. You see it says things like dealer inventory, vehicle offered for sale. Things like that tells you when the car was actually last seen on the lot. Meaning in this particular case, it was 10:07 was the last time this dealer had this car ready to be sold. Okay, so 10:07. Now here's the way the 30, 60, 90 day rule. Dealers start high and start pricing the cars very, very high based on market data. Meaning that same Vanquish you just saw right here is listed for 182. But it's really only worth about 150K in a wholesale with this amount of miles. So why is the dealer hoping to get 32,000 even though he's kept the car that long? You see, dealers start high and 30 days later usually lower their prices, and then again 30 days later lower their prices, and again at 90 days they lower it just enough to kind of move the car, just a little bit above what they paid, and they make some money and they move it. So the key is always to find cars that have been around a little bit over 90 days because it just makes good business sense that if a dealer has a car that he can't move, he's more likely to negotiate on it. But how does the dealer even come to the price of 182, especially since this car has almost been on the lot, quite some time? So let's go ahead and look. Let's go ahead and do a search for the Vanquish and actually see what comes up here. So if we do a Vanquish on eBay Motor, look at what we find here. I just want you to see this. Now, we're looking at 2016 at 248, a 2015 starting bid at 227, 347, 349, 269, 182, 345. This is an old ass one for 155, 182, and this is a Vantage, so it doesn't count. Now, look, if we look on eBay right now, we see one car 14 with low miles at 182, but a very ugly and unique color. Then we see white, which is one of the most desirable colors on a 2014 with 8,000 miles at 182. Do you see what's going on here? 182, 182. So what the dealers do is they check pricing and all the softwares that they have on all of the listings out there. And they list their cars based on what's on the market rather than what it's really worth. So instead of just saying, hey, I'd like to make 20K on this Vanquish and that'd be plenty of money for me, instead the dealer lists this car somewhere around 35 to 40K more than it is because other people are asking these kind of dollars on these platforms, which is why dealers list the same car on different platforms for different prices. It's always matched to what's available on that platform because they assume that you, the idiotic consumer who only searches one particular platform first, will only see the car on one, which is typically why they ask you, oh, can you tell us where you have actually seen this car or heard about it? Because they want to be able to check their listing and make sure that they're advising you on the right thing, because they might have the same car you found on Auto Trader for 5K less on Car Gurus. So the point is they want to make sure you saw what it is, and if you haven't seen the other ones, they'll quickly go and adjust the other ones so that by the time you come in, all of them are matching the high price you saw or the low price you saw, whatever it is. So when they have a serious buyer on a car, that's how they kind of act in that shady manner. But that's okay, that's business, like that's the reality there. But when a car sits on the lot 30 days, it's lowered, 60 days it's lowered, and 90 days it's even lowered more. When you find a car that's been sitting around for 90 days, we can look here at this Vantage V12, it's a completely different car, but you see here the dealer inventory came in on 1108, and now we're at the end, so it's been there 45 days. I can tell you that in the next 45 days, this is going to be a car to keep an eye on. If it's still at the dealer lot, it's going to once again be less. So the point is that if you're looking at these cars, you can always go on the Carfax, this is the first thing, see when it was put into dealer inventory here it's 1108 at the bottom here, and then as a result, calculate, has it been 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. If you find a car that's been 30 days, it's more likely that there's so much more room to negotiate than a car that's been there 90 days, because it has yet to be lowered. So this is rule one, something I was hoping you guys would understand, because it's key. If you're not in the dealer business, you need to understand that. The second thing I want to share with you is something really, really cool, which a lot of people don't know. Here we're looking at the website for Mercedes-Benz of Miami. Mercedes-Benz of Miami is part of the largest franchise dealership in the country, in the United States, which is called AutoNation. AutoNation is the biggest giant in the car space, and they typically like to do a no-haggle pricing kind of deal. They do negotiate very, very poorly and very little, especially on their normal cars. They negotiate a little bit more on their Ferraris, Lamborghinis, etc. they carry in certain climates, meaning like in Florida, California, because those places have more of an influx and they understand margins are greater. But now, here's the opportunity with something like an AutoNation store, is that a lot of times they'll make mistakes. What I mean by that is, you can walk into an AutoNation store, AutoNation franchise store, could be Mercedes, BMW, whatever it is, right? You'll walk in and you'll say, hey, listen, I saw this Lamborghini here listed for $240, and the guy will be like, you know what? I'm sorry, we can only give you like a $3,000 discount. And you're like, wait, I can buy the same car somewhere else for $220. They don't care. The reason why AutoNation doesn't care is because they genuinely follow a 30, 60, 90 rule, meaning that they will absolutely lower their prices. Actually, they follow a different rule. They follow a 30, 45 day, 15, 30, 45 day, and then 60 rule. But most of the cars move within 45 days. So what AutoNation will do is they'll get more aggressive on their pricing. But if you catch them early, they won't budge on their pricing with you. They'll just naturally lower the car. I tried to buy a CL65 from here. They were asking $58,000. I saw it listed for $54. It came down in price. I walked in the dealership, I offered $50, and they were like, nope, sorry, won't sell you the car. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. It's worth like $45. And then what ends up happening is I offered $50. I walked out. They wouldn't call me back. They wouldn't sell me the car. 3 days later, because that was the time the car was going to switch again, they lowered it to like $46,000. So again, the point was that even though they could have sold it for $50 and made $4K more, they have to follow their rules because they're a corporate store that's just a bunch of idiots running it, and they're like puppets sitting in the store and they're just following instructions on what corporate tells them. So this is the perfect example of a stupid dealership, but you have to understand how they work. So how do you know if a car's been sitting there outside of, or how many times it's been reduced? Because AutoNation will change its algorithms as well based on the market. So I want you to look at these 6 cars on the screen here, because this is kind of a combination of AutoNation Mercedes stores locally to South Florida, and so they put them all on the same screen. But what do you notice is a significant difference with some of these listings here. You'll notice some of them end with an 8, 5, 9, 7, and 3. Now, what AutoNation does that a lot of people don't know is that it uses this algorithm, which is completely automated using software, to gauge the market at any given time and price their product and their cars. Now, what ends up happening with this algorithm is that it needs to somehow give an indicator to the salespeople or to the managers without actually them looking up on how many reductions has the car had. So here's how the AutoNation algorithms work. If you're looking at the end number, which is a 8, 5, 9, 7, 3, or whatever it is, typically the higher the number, the earlier the car has been on the lot. Meaning if you see a car with a 9, it's typically been there longer than a car with a 5. And if you see a car with a 3, it's typically been there even longer than both of the above. So the lower the end number, the closer it is to final reduction and to get the fuck out of there and be sold or wholesold to another store. The other thing you can also notice a lot of times is if you look on the Carfax, in most cases, you may notice that the car has actually traveled from more than one store to another. Because AutoNation has so many stores locally, it typically does a really good job at moving one car to another. So meaning, what does that mean? That means it moves their car that it can't sell. Instead of just shipping it to the auction, when it knows the market's really not there, it just didn't find a client, it'll move it to a sister store down the road. And it may at some point even come back. This gives you either greater ammunition, because while the new store will start again high and go low, it will start high but lower than the previous high. So what ends up happening is that the car will constantly see a new low. If you follow the same car across 3 stores, or you see that it's been sold from one dealer to another, and you see that same thing, we saw dealer inventory on the Carfax multiple times, then you will understand that the dealer is actually playing games by moving the car around because it's trying to get more exposure for it, because it's obviously not selling. This creates a unique opportunity for you as the buyer to be able to make an offer and ultimately win. So hopefully this makes sense, and at least this was rule number 2, because I just wanted you to understand how kind of this model works. First we checked the 30, 60, 90, and then we talked obviously about the relation of the end number here with a franchise dealer and how they play the game against you. The last and third thing I want to cover with you is this really, really interesting thing called packing that a lot of people don't understand. So let me tell you a little bit about what I mean. Sometimes you'll see dealers do what you call invoice deals. So they'll show you, they'll take you to your computer, no tricks, they'll show you how much they paid for a car. Meaning they'll show you cost on a car, right? They'll pull up their computer, they'll be like, oh look, I paid like 120K for this car, and you're like looking at it straight on the computer and it doesn't seem like a lie. And they're telling you, hey, you know what, I'm selling you the car for 119, so I'm losing money on the car. Most dealers won't take a loss on the car. They'll wholesale the car previous to taking a loss. But the reason why it may seem like a dealer at some point is taking a loss on a car is because they have what they call packing. Packing is a pre-pack is what a dealership does when it takes a car in, and typically on smaller dealerships or even larger dealerships, the owner takes a pack, meaning it says that no matter what, any car in the door has to have $3,000 to $5,000, for example. They decide what that number is, automatically added to the bottom line, and that becomes the bottom line on the car. So let's say they bought a car for 112, they've packed it with 5K, so now it shows that the cost at like 117. So even when the dealer sells you a car at 116, they're still making 4K on the car. Which is really, really cool because, you know, that allows them to still make money. Now, most dealerships pack about $5,000. $5,000 in actual pre-pack on exotic cars. So at a very minimum, even if they sell you cost, they still have 5K in the car. That's a really, really important thing because you need to understand that even though you may think you're getting a good deal, which still is a good deal usually if you're getting a car for just what the dealer has packed in it, but in some cases where you think you're getting a good deal, you need to be consciously aware that you're getting raped. So it's important to know what's happening to you, even if you choose to pay it for a more expensive take or so on and so forth. So the three things we learned, the 30, 60, 90 rule, we learn how to read listings that show how long the car has been on the lot, looking at the N number, and finally we'll learn what a pre-pack is. These are three things, and just so you know, this particular screen you're looking at here is just a definition terminology of a lot of what dealers use here. You see there's a lot of funny thing, like they call people like grape. This is a very easy buyer, so you know they have nicknames for stuff. This is what dealerships do. But you need to understand these things, and this is available at ohiolemonlaw.com for you to just understand what these terms are. But for now, what I wanted you to understand is what we just talked about right here is the 30, 60, 90 rule. We talked about the N listing, and we talked about pre-packs. These are three critical things that enable you to become a better negotiator at the dealership every single day, every time you go in there. So that's why it's really key for you to understand these three things. All right, guys, I'm back. Now you learned three sick things you can use to leverage against dealerships. You learned how they work, you learned the pre-pack, and you learned the 30, 60, 90 rule. Things that allow you to leverage getting better margins on your car so you too can drive sick Maseratis, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, R8s, or whatever the hell you want without having any cost and eventually end up making money like the dealer would. You don't need a dealer license, you don't need insurance. What you need is exoticcarhacks.com on your side, and what you need is to get on our site today because it's a Cyber Monday sale. Memberships have never been this low, and this is your last chance before they go back up to $249. So again, lowest price in history. It's a fraction of what I just said, and it's only available today. So get on the site. This is your last opportunity before I raise the price back up and we go back to normal. Plenty of people are paying our regular prices. This is our opportunity to help you guys. For those of you that are skeptical, don't understand, for a fraction of the cost for Cyber Monday. So jump on now, get your special discount, and I'll catch you guys next time with more